Hello, friends. My name's Summer Benton. I was born in America, where I lived until I was in my mid-20s, when I moved to Cambodia to do anti-trafficking work in Phnom Penh. I'm now married to a Kiwi, and together we have 4 children. Our oldest we adopted from Cambodia. Our family moved from Cambodia to New Zealand 3.5 years ago, and my husband and I work now as mission enablers for NZCMS, and we help to lead a church in Wellington. As this class is about growing as global disciples, today we're going to talk about culture. Culture is something that our family lives and breathes every day, and something that we've learned a lot about through the years. In our immediate family, we have an American, a Cambodian, a New Zealander, and 3 young children who live a mix of all these other cultures. In fact, our 6-year-old tells people she's Cambodian because that's where she spent the first years of her life. We were born in 3 different countries and raised in 3 different cultures. We've all experienced living in countries with cultures different from our own, and also lived alongside family members who are learning about our cultures as we try to understand and love one another well. The result of this complex web of race, nationality, and culture is a beautiful space that exists in our home, where we each work hard to respect and learn from one another. It's hard work at times, but the gift we have in exchange for that hard work, I wouldn't trade for anything. I'm excited to take us on a journey of exploring the beautiful complexities and gifts of culture today. In the last module, Kirsten unpacked God's mission and explored what it's all about. She introduced a model that helps frame this in terms of relationships. God's mission of restoration. Simply put, God's mission is about restoring broken relationships in all areas. Between us and God, us and others, us and creation, and our relationship with ourselves. Now in this module, we're going to be digging particularly into the part of God's mission of restoration that's about restored relationships with humanity. So our relationship with others and our relationship with ourselves. As we explore the topic of culture, we're going to dig into several questions. What is culture? How do we define it? How do we understand it? And how do we engage with cultures different from our own in a healthy, loving, and God-honoring way? The foundation of good and healthy cross-cultural engagement is honor, dignity, love, and self-awareness. Through Scripture, we're given the gift of understanding culture through the lens of our Creator God. Genesis 1:27 says, "So God created humankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them." As humans, we're designed as image bearers of God in a world made for love and relationship. So that means there's an inherent equality between all of humanity in the fact that we are all made in God's image. This is foundational to God's mission. If we are all made in God's image, then that means that God is expressed in all cultures. And in fact, the fullness of God cannot be understood without looking at the way that God is expressed in cultures different from our own. So what exactly is culture? In short, culture is the ideas, values, beliefs, customs, and social behavior of a particular people or society. There are parts of culture that we can see and the parts that we can't see. The parts of it that we can easily see tend to be easier to engage with across cultures, and the risk of offense is lower. The parts that we cannot see are more difficult to engage, and the risk of offending tends to be quite high. We can go to a new country, we can put on their traditional dress and learn some of their language to immediately connect and express our respect and honor for their culture. But no matter how much language we know or how much we love the food, we cannot easily shift our deeply embedded values and beliefs as we seek to engage the culture. The deeper we get in our engagement with another culture, the higher the impact on relationship and trust. We can understand this concept of the layers of culture through the model of a tree. We can see the things above ground, like the trunk, branches, and leaves, but the most important part of the tree is its root structure, which cannot be seen. The things we usually focus on when we see a tree are its leaves, fruit, or blossoms, the things at the top. With culture, those are things like dress, cuisine, language, stories, entertainment, games. They're observable things that can be seen relatively easily and quickly. These things are pretty easy to engage with across cultures, and they have a low emotional impact on trust with people. The structure that the branches and leaves stem from is its trunk. These are parts of the culture that are less easily seen, maybe unspoken rules that a culture may use to inform behaviors. These are things like our concept of time, theories of wellness and disease, personal space, the ways that we handle emotion. These things can be seen or observed, but they're more subtle. They're not as simple to understand, and then they have a higher emotional impact on trust with people. And then there are the roots. These are the things that we can't see. The often unconscious cultural beliefs and norms. Things like how we make decisions, our notion of fairness, group identity, and worldview. These things are complex, often hidden, and then they have an intense impact on trust. As you can see, culture is layered and complex, and it's never fully understood by people from outside cultures. But just because we can never fully understand another culture doesn't mean we shouldn't try. Just remember, knowing that there's heaps you don't know is way more important than all the things that you do know. And understanding this is the first step to being able to engage in another culture with honor, dignity, and love. Another quite important part of engaging cross-culturally in a healthy way is to have realistic expectations. We need to expect confusion, misunderstandings, disappointment. But we also need to expect richness, beauty, and to be able to see more of God's character and kingdom than ever before. When I moved to Cambodia, I had no doubt that the culture there would be extremely different from my own. I expected it. I was prepared for it. I still found it difficult at times, and things still caught me off guard, but for the most part, my expectations were in line with reality, and I was ready to be challenged. The first time I came to New Zealand with my husband and engaged with his culture here, my experience was quite the opposite. We came here from Cambodia, and so I expected to be more comfortable in a culture similar to my own. I assumed things would be the same as they were in America, and was hit quite hard when I quickly discovered that they weren't. We were only here a month on that trip, but I experienced worse culture shock in New Zealand than I have anywhere else in the world. And it was all due to the fact that I did not expect the differences. The other very important foundation for healthy cross-cultural engagement is self-awareness. We first need to understand who we are and how God made us before we look to understand others. Culture is more complex than the simple idea that everybody from a certain country has the same culture. In fact, within one country, there are many different cultures represented. We do all have parts of our culture that we share with others from our home country, but we also have parts of our culture that come from our racial or ethnic group, our region, and even our family. If we don't know what part of our culture is unique to us and what part is shared with others, then we increase the potential to clash with somebody else's culture and not be as honoring or loving as we're trying to be. On the other hand, we don't want our fear of that clash and the potential struggles of relating with people from other cultures to keep us from the beauty and fullness of God's kingdom that can come through our loving engagement with other cultures. God's invitation is for us to be the body of Christ together. We're going to unpack further the concept of understanding our own culture and worldview in Module 4, so make sure you tune in for that. To summarize where we've been in this module, we first noted how vital it is to our understanding of the fullness of God's character to look at God's kingdom displayed through different cultures. We looked at culture through the model of a tree with leaves, a trunk, and roots, and learned about how some parts of culture are easily seen while others are buried deep. And we talked about the importance of managing our expectations as we engage across cultures, how important it is to know how much you don't know. And we noted how cultures are not just found in different countries, but there can be different cultures in every country, region, and family. As I said before, our journey into new cultures is rich and exciting. It can be a complex journey, but one that is so vital to our faith, our understanding of God's kingdom, and a first step in participating in God's mission of restoration in the world. As we become more intentional about our cross-cultural engagement, I have a practice to suggest that can be a fun way to learn about new cultures. The full outline of this practice can be found in the class notes or at nzcms.org.nz. I have a friend from the UK who's married to a Cambodian and lives and works in Phnom Penh. She has a great activity that she does with her 2 children. They take turns picking a different country every couple of weeks. They spend time learning about the culture, learning a few phrases in the local language, praying for the people groups there, and then making a traditional meal together from that culture. It's a wonderful way to learn about new cultures and some of the things that make those cultures so richly diverse and beautiful. While these aspects of food, dress, music, and language are parts of a culture that are found at the top part of that tree, they don't exist in isolation. They're connected to the trunk and to the roots, and a beautiful first step in engagement with that culture. What would it look like for you, your family, or your small group to, once a month maybe, pick a new culture and learn all about it? Learn some language, listen to their music, and cook food together from that culture, and pray for the people there. Learn, eat, and pray. We've spent time talking today about how much more there is to culture than the things you can see. And so with that in mind, this or many other activities may feel token or superficial. In fact, if we consider how complex culture is, we could potentially feel quite paralyzed in our attempts to engage in different cultures and learn more about them. I want to encourage you to push past that. Start learning. Nothing's token if it's another step on the journey. Remember, the practices we suggest are about turning our heads, hearts, and lives outward.